Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. DOS here. We just had a community live stream and it was an interesting one. I had a feeling it wasn't going to be about the Grimoire since they even said at the beginning of the stream that they usually have community streams for the Grimoire, but that's only when there's a voting happening and there isn't one. It's happening next week, or I guess next week or the week after. But this was mainly about what's upcoming. So they talk about 2v8 and they talk about what's going to be on the PTB, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to go over. So let's get right into it. So we're going to do this basically in order. They start off by talking about 2v8. First things first, I want to let everyone know that there is not going to be a new killer for 2v8 this time around, which makes me a bit sad. As somebody who likes 2v8, I always think that they should be adding at least a new class or a new killer for every iteration. However, they do go into why, which I'll get into here in a little bit, but they did want to make everybody aware that for this next 2v8, Deathslinger is getting a buff and Oni is getting a nerf. Now, we don't know what those buffs and nerfs specifically are. We might know if the 2v8 is on the PTB. If not, then we're going to find out basically the day that 2v8 goes live. My guess is Slinger might get a movement speed buff. And I think Oni is probably going to get a movement speed nerf and probably a blood collecting nerf. But they had stated that those were the only two killers getting some kind of changes for the most part. They did also say that they're updating the anti-camp for 2v8. I don't know if you've experienced this. I know my buddy Polly has 100% multiple times, where you're in a cage and it takes you so long to teleport to a different part of the map if the killers are near you. It seemed very unresponsive and unreliable. So now, moving forward with the next iteration of 2v8, starters will be able to choose if they want to change cage location or not with an action key, but they're not going to be able to choose where they're going. So this means that if you know that there's a survivor coming for you to get the save, and they are like right in front of you, but then you end up teleporting, which is what usually happens, they wouldn't be able to get the save on you. But now, if you see somebody coming, you can go ahead and hold off that teleport if you know that it's going to be a safe save, but the game beforehand would auto teleport you because the killer is relatively close, like maybe like Wesker with his massive tear radius. I think that's a great change. I think that's something that was greatly needed. Again, you can't choose where you teleport, but you can basically choose when. My guess is it's going to be a anti-camp bar, just like in the main game, where once it fills up, you can press your button to teleport if you need to. On top of that, 2 maps are being added to the 2v8 pool. We're getting Temple of Purgation and Ironworks of Misery. I'm going to be honest, I'm not looking forward to either of them. I think Ironworks of Misery is going to be a bit difficult with the main building, and Temple of Purgation has the gigantic temple in the middle, so it's going to be a bit hectic. We're going to have to wait and see. They did also state that Legion is not coming back to 2v8, at least for the time being. So as you are aware, 2v8 was added into the game, and Legion was added into the game mode, I believe, in the second iteration, and he became just a menace. He became super oppressive and not fun to play against. And so they disabled him. But every time 2v8 came back, it came with a little icon on him that said temporarily disabled. I believe not with this next 2v8, but with the 2v8 following, that icon will be changed back to just fully disabled. So the big cross out. They did say that there are no plans to re-add Legion at this moment, but that could change in the future. They just haven't found a way to implement Legion in a way that is fun and engaging for both sides. And speaking on that, they also state that they want to add killers that are simple to use, fun for both roles, and have strong usage and appreciation in 1v4. However, they did say that killer queue times need to be considered, because whenever a new killer gets added, that ends up increasing the killer queue times. They confirmed this by their own statistics that they've had for 2v8. So they want to take that in consideration, and they also urge people to remember that resources are finite, that resources are shared across events from the team in development. So there might be people who are working on 2v8 who are also working on, let's say, the anniversary event, so on and so forth. So that's the main reason why killers aren't being added on a extremely quick and regular basis. But they did also go into details explaining why some killers are taking longer than others to implement into 2v8. The first example they gave was killers that have world visual effects. The examples they gave were Freddy and the Dredge. They want to make sure like they can know what is going to be taking priority. So, for example, if you're going against a duo killer of Freddy and Dredge, how is the game going to know like, oh, should I be putting the nightfall now? What's going to happen when a survivor falls asleep during nightfall? How is that going to work? How is that going to look? So still working on that. They want to make sure that they can have these killers work in a way where it doesn't screw interactions and impede on survivors playability or screw over the other killer, because they go on to say that another reason why that some killers taking longer than others is if they have shared interactables. An example they gave as well was Huntress and Dredge. They need to test how survivors can lock lockers, but still have the Huntress be able to use lockers. Same thing if you're doing Huntress and Trickster. How will they have it with Huntress and Trickster having to reload at lockers at the same time? What would happen if a Dredge is in a locker and the Huntress or Trickster tries to go to reload? How would that work? So these are reasons why some killers are taking much longer than others that some people might really, really want. And they also talked about the licensing factor for 2v8 selection. They had stated that licenses tick all the boxes for what players want and like. It's typically characters that a lot of players find fun to play against. The examples they gave were Wesker and Nemesis. These were characters that a lot of people in the community tend to have a lot of fun playing as and tend to have fun playing against. But they're trying to see what's the most used and enjoyed in 1v4 and get that included for players in 2v8. They did say that after this upcoming 2v8, there will be a questionnaire asking the community what we want for the next 2v8, what they want to be added, what should be avoided. This is going to be including stuff not limited to like what killers you want to see or what things you want to see change from the current 2v8. And a big thing for me is with this next 2v8 coming, they are going to be introducing Play While You Wait in 1v4. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to be staying after 1v4. I don't know if you've noticed in the current game, we actually got the estimated queue time to stay over in the 1v4 mode from 2v8. So we are getting the same thing with Play While You Wait. However, it's still only going to be like if you're queued for Killer. If you want to Play While You Wait for Survivor, you can in 1v4, but it's not reversed. But they are looking into how to implement it for the other role. So if you're queuing up as Survivor, but you want to play as Killer while you wait for a match, they're looking into letting that be a thing. That's everything for 2v8. I'm not super happy that we're not getting a new killer. It is 2v8 and it is fun, but considering that the only things that are changing are a buff and a nerf to a killer each and 2 maps being added, I think that we could have waited a bit longer for 2v8. But besides that, we move on to live balance. Now, this is where a lot of the meat and potatoes were for this stream. There's a lot of information for this. So we start off by talking about modifier stacking. What this means is healing speed, repair speed, gen regression, haste, hindered. They're looking into diminishing returns for these modifiers. And they did state that they learned that saying that there's a cap or that they can't stack doesn't work and negates playstyles altogether. If any of you remember or aren't aware, last year they attempted to put a hard cap on haste stacking, haste and I believe hindered. And overall, the community, for the most part, really disliked it. It ended up leading to a big stifling on creativity and the ability to have different playstyles be used with different perks. So they're trying to avoid that, and so they explained how diminishing returns would work with being their end goal. So they're adding a new lever to balance modifiers with the ability to separate modifier balance between different sources, being perks, powers, items, and they want to bring generalist and specialized builds closer together, which support more build diversity and help with solo queue players that can adapt to pairings. What this means is like they want to be able to let people uh still use their, like, let's say their Gen Rush build or their Mega Healing build or whatever, like that, but still let other players be able to work along with that. So they went on to say that functionally they're capping limitless stacking. There's not a hard cap, but it's just they're making limits more predictable with less abusive synergies. So they went in to explain what is diminishing returns. They stated that each instance to a modifier, their values will be reduced, ordered from largest to smallest. And this will be adjusted live in game as you're going through your match. The reduction will increase as the base modifier decreases. Some examples they gave was botany knowledge will have a 50%, which is using the full amount. But then if you stack on desperate measures, which at 2 hooks is 40%, that will be modified to 20%. So instead of a 90% healing speed bonus, it would then become a 70% healing speed bonus. And this will be on the PTB for testing. They're going to be closely monitoring what people say with this change. I highly recommend everybody to at least go on the PTB on the first day to test, so that we can see how this plays out, how this works, and if we like it or if we don't like it. And Behavior are not afraid to revert this change or to go back to the drawing board for it. Again, the whole point of the PTB is to test and to be able to give our feedback. And with that as well, I do want to remind everybody that the PTB is only for Steam players. For everyone who's on console or Epic Games, you will not be able to join. It's not a Dead by Daylight thing. It's simply a home thing for the consoles and the different platform, because it takes a lot of vetting and a lot of agreements to come to all platforms available and included to let a update go live. And since a PTB is something that needs to be able to change on the fly or be able to be extended or shortened at a moment's notice, they can't get that approval within the same day from every other platform besides Steam. But besides that, they did also mention some killer updates coming to the PTB, and it's quite interesting. So the 2 strongest killers are getting nerfs. They start off by saying that the Blight is getting a nerf. He's getting a speed reduction going from 4.6 to 4.4. So what that means is he used to be a normal speed killer like the Trapper, like Springtrap without his axe, stuff like that. And now the Blight is going to be base speed the same as killers like Huntress and now Trickster, stuff along those lines. Instead of being 115% speed, he's going to be 110%, which is something that a lot of people have been complaining about, saying that they nerfed Trickster, making him 110% killer, but yet the Blight is still 115%, granted that he has his insane movement. So now in the PTB, he's going to be reduced. Again, this is still going to be tested. This might change when it comes to live, but we'll have to wait and see. But another thing that's getting nerfed at the Blight is his rush tokens. So if you're aware, with individuals like the Ghoul, when you break a pallet, your power ends up going on cooldown. The same thing's going to be happening with the Blight. So when you do a pallet break, it's going to reduce your rush tokens down to 2 below your max, and it's going to reset your current rush token recharge. And this will not matter how you break the pallet. If you break it through a power, through a perk, through just pressing your break button, no matter what, you're going to be getting this effect put onto you, which I think is a much needed change. It is really strong to zone a survivor, break the pallet, and then melee rush. This is going to make Blight a lot better to go against as survivor. It's going to take a lot more skill and critical thinking from Blight players in general. But moving on from that, we also have the nurse. So at this point in time, only one thing is being nerfed from the nurse, and it's her Last Breath lunge duration add-on. So on the live build, this add-on gives you a 30% lunge duration, whereas on the PTB, it's going to be a 10%. And they have other ideas for long-term changes to nurse, but for now, it's only the add-on that's getting changed. But on top of that, they also said that there are killers getting buffs. They say that Leatherface, Doctor, Demogorgon, Dredge, Ghostface, Wesker, which They're still working on his bug fixes from the recent patches. They are aware and they're still working on that. Unknown and Springtrap are getting buffs. However, Springtrap had an asterisk on his name because they're going to be changing stuff with the cameras. So they stated that if survivors don't interact with the cameras, Afton will be receiving all of his buffs. So it seems it's going to be like a reward risk system where if you are actively like using the cameras and having them trained on Springtrap and stuff like that, then he won't get whatever buffs are going to be coming to him within the match. But if you refuse to use the cameras, then Springtrap will have full reign of being able to use whatever buffs he's going to be getting. That's all the information they gave us for these buffs. Again, this is going to be probably part of the patch notes, and I'm definitely going to be testing Springtrap a ton on the PTB. I'll be live on Tuesday. I won't be able to be live with Paulie. He unfortunately will not be present for the PTB, but I will be testing these slight survivor changes, and I'm definitely going to be testing Springtrap. But they also went on to talk about some quality of life things. So they went into a section that they titled Learning and Empowerment, and they're working on things to help new players. They want to do so in ways that are positive impacts for new and experienced players, and they're looking to remove friction so challenges remain as intended. So it said like fast things are fast. It's always been a pain point for a lot of new individuals who can't tell if what they're doing on a generator or healing is good or bad. The progress bar works in mysterious ways, as they said. And they notice that the way it varies in colors can be hard to understand for new players, and the colors depend on speed. So as of right now, if you're on a gen by yourself, the bar is just typically white. It's just the base color. And then if another person hops on the gen to work with you, the bar immediately goes red. And to any new player, you'd think like, oh, red means bad. We're going slower. Okay, I'm going to leave and go work on a different gen because I'm not helping the survivor. They're changing that, and I'll have a clip from the stream here so you can see where the bar is going to be having an added UI element to it. So an animation will be input on the bar to show if the gen is being increased or decreased. It's going to be a bunch of arrows basically on the bar going to the right being increased, going to the left being decreased. And it's going to be showing that information much easier to people. And then when the speed is increased, no matter what on the gen, the bar will be gold. So if the generator or the healing action, I'm assuming, is being slowed down, then it's going to be red. And if it's being increased by base numbers, it's going to be gold. They also went on to talk about teams and solo queue. They acknowledge it's hard to understand what's on a teammate's mind. You might not know if that person will make it or if they have deliverance. So you end up maybe taking the unhook when the other player has perks that will be more beneficial if they get the unhook. And so they are changing it where once you are loaded into a match, if you press the tab button, the match details button, you'll be able to see the loadouts of all your teammates in game. So you'll be able to see what perks they brought. You can see what items they brought and add-ons. And then there's also going to be an icon for the killer's power in that same screen so that you are aware what killer you're going against. Now, they did talk about stealth killers and stuff along those lines. We're going to have to wait and see how this really plays out on the PTB and if that section of it goes to live. I know it's something that people have asked for so they can see people's loadouts. One of the big issues were that how would they mediate having people just leave the lobby immediately when they see, let's say, someone's bringing No Mither, or someone's bringing Scene Partner on Steve or on Lisa, etc., etc. So they've made it set you can only see the loadouts of your teammates in the match menu. Now, I'm assuming on Killer, you don't get that information at all. I'm assuming it's just grayed out, like how on Survivor, the Killer section was grayed out. But this is something that's very nice, and it's going to be able to let people know exactly who's bringing what's happening, so that you don't have these weird interactions where you end up screwing another player without realizing it. And they also briefly touched on to spectator mode. They are actually updating the HUD for it so it can be interactable. So that if you hover over certain elements of what you're spectating, you can get information. So let's say you've died early and you're spectating your friend in game, You can hover over their perks and you can see what they do. Let's say they use vault a window and they get Lithe. You can see that the effect that's on their screen being like, oh, this is haste. It's just more information that's more beneficial. It's going to be good for content creators, for people running tournaments. It's going to be something that's just beneficial overall. And this is going to be happening in no matter what, how you're spectating, whether it's in modifiers, whether it's in the main game, whether it's in custom games. This is going to be implemented throughout. And then they basically ended by saying that there are going to be more auras available. They're going to be adding more customization, specifically to highlighted elements like killer objects, breakable walls, stuff like that. So that's always nice. I think having more stuff that you can differentiate is going to be great. I'm still going to leave killer items as pure white because I think it's the most noticeable, but that's basically it. Overall, a much more intensive stream than I thought it was going to be, but it's going to be an interesting PTB to test. Again, for anyone who's on Steam, I implore you to go and test it, to go on, at least spend one day doing it. This is important stuff that's being changed, and everyone's voice matters. They actually do listen to the community, especially when the PTB comes out, but they can't listen to the community if the community isn't playing the PTB. And again, I wish that console players and Epic Game players can join, but it's just not in Behavior's control for that. So we're going to have to just do all the testing we can and see what comes live and what doesn't. But that's going to be it for this. That's everything that they talked about. Let me know down in the comments, what are things that they're changing or they're bringing in that you're excited for? What are things that you think that they can do more in the future? I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on this. But if you're new around here, leave a like, hit that subscribe button. I do Dead by Daylight content to give you guys updates and news to mostly everything that's coming. And as always, hope you all have a good morning, afternoon, and evening. Goodbye, everyone.